Welcome to the search bar, where we're diving into Google's bold move from information to intelligence. So for decades, Google's purpose has essentially been to provide useful information, to organize information, but that's absolutely changing. Today, Google is quickly moving to a philosophy of intelligence over information. So, Melissa, what does that mean?
Yeah, it's a really interesting concept that is pretty simplistic when you put it together, like information to intelligence. But what it's really talking about is contextualization. So, what Google has always done since it started, it was the first company that basically organized all of the world's content into an area where you could understand um, topically kind of what was going on. You think of those as query, and where you could find information around that topic or query from anything that was open web. Now, what we're kind of at is Google is now seeing that when OpenAI came in and released ChatGPT was like, hey, cool, Google, this is really great that you organized all of the web's content, but it's not strong enough for where we're at today. Let's use a large language model system on top of here so that we can contextualize what's there. So an example would be, you're looking for something within Google, and you would get all of those top 10 results. I mean, previously you'd get a lot more, but let's just take the top 10 results. And essentially what's happening is that was information. That was organized information. And now an LLM says, let's compound all of this and now give one answer. And this answer is a summation of a lot that goes not just behind those top 10, but other information behind that as well to give that answer. So this is where it does become much more intelligent. And not is it just like intelligence in that answer. Now you can also start to layer on really, really detailed items and asks of that information. So instead of it just being, looking for a car, best electric car in 2025, it allows us to become a much more sophisticated searcher, because we know we're going to not just get information, we're actually going to get intelligence back from the tool, the system. And so now you can say, hey, I have a family of 4. I'm looking for a car that, is electric model because I really like the Teslas, but I'm also looking for it to give me the ability to go on maybe more long haul drives, because I live in Des Moines, Iowa, and we can't get anywhere that looks different than Des Moines unless we're traveling about 8 to 10 hours from where we're at. So electric vehicles become a little bit more questionable. I can literally put all of that into the chat, and it will actually give me really detailed information that solves a lot of the problems that I was essentially presenting in that query, or really it was a prompt. And so it is really smart to say we do need to go from information to intelligence, because it does, like, as we have a world in which we're all super busy, you do need to speed up some of those processes. But it does enter into a weird dichotomy of the symbiotic relationship that has always been around delivering information and the people and the organizations that are creating that information. So now what has happened is everybody is saying, this is really great. I actually, as a searcher, I really like this user experience. This is great to get an answer. But those of us on the marketing side and even beyond the marketing side are looking at it going, yeah, but that symbiotic relationship is a little broken now, because I'm not incentivized to provide as much detailed content as I have in the past. And even beyond that, for any of these LLMs, for any of these AIs to actually work even better than they do today, and honestly, like, remove a lot of their hallucinations and other problems that kind of come with them right now, they need all of that information at scale, and now even more at scale than it was before, because they need hyper detailed information, hyper detailed data and content instead of flat content. So, like, in the world of Google, the way that it has traditionally and always kind of existed, there was a lot of duplicate content. Now that you're moving from information to intelligence, it's the way, way less about the duplicate content because that can always be regurgitated on its own through an actual LLM itself. It's really now more about how you can deliver the hyper detailed content. So where is all of this content, and how does it relate to each other? So not only is it hyper detailed content, but it's also hyper relational and hyper connective content. That sounds like, oh, I'm saying a lot of words. Google actually tried something similar to this when before all the contextual LLMs was around, and that is back quite a few years ago now, like I don't know, 10, maybe even 10 plus years ago. Google introduced the knowledge graph. And the knowledge graph was basically taking all of the world's information and how it was organized and trying to put all of that relational and connective tissue together to say, Barack Obama is married to Michelle Obama, and together they have these daughters. And then, to him, his vice president is Biden, and from there you can start to get a little bit of relational information. Now, if you then take that and say, okay, well, that's just information and it's connecting the dots, it's not intelligent. It's telling me that there is a relation, not telling me how that relationship truly works together. So now this is where we're at in the world of moving from information to intelligence. With all of that contextualization, you can actually start to then not just say like who is connected to who, like I am connected to Drew via marriage. It can now start to understand I used to work at Blue Compass and how we formulated a digital marketing department back in that day. And since then, I'd moved on to these other places, and it can actually take in my social accounts. It can take in a lot of other detail about me to then start to contextualize how Drew and I's marriage has kind of worked together to formulate who I am today. That's the type of stuff it's going to be able to understand. How that comes down from a business and an organization perspective is how much hyper detail you're actually going to give it, and start to give it the understanding of the connections and the relations to each other.
And that's so true. It does, all these AI platforms and Google now, the more data, the better.
Yes, it can't exist without more data coming into it.
More data, yes. The more data it has, the more intelligence it has, essentially,
Yes.
because it can organize and get the right data and get better and better answers. But like you said, part of the problem here is they are de-incentivizing content creators in some ways to create content because they're just taking so much of this content that they don't own and displaying it on their pages as answers.
Yeah.
And that's different than we've had in the past because, back in the days with just 10 blue links, that was a pretty good deal for your website and your content creation. You would link right to you. And then, you got rich snippets, which grabbed some of the information.
Mm-hmm.
And you got AI overviews, which grab more of the information. And now it's like grabbing so much of the information.
Yeah.
It does get a little frustrating to marketers.
Yeah, it does, because right now, and I would say we will figure this out. This will be figured out. But at this exact moment, the symbiotic relationship between creator and producer, right? Like the LLM, like Google in this instance, it's broken. And so there's going to have to figure out a way in which either your company is changing its model to not be reliant on traffic and understanding the other ways in which you influence and receive whatever ends up becoming your revenue source for your company, like how that actually works without having to rely on traffic as a KPI. I do think that is where that's going to be really important in the future. And then if you want to exist within that, in this move to intelligence, you have to start to understand what really is a solution, a solve, an answer, essentially, that's going to that can be given to your exact audience. Now, again, this really comes back to an audience-centric approach of knowing who your audience is, what they want, how they want it, where they're looking for it, and how you can provide a solution within all of that approach. Because when you think about Google's AI mode and you think about this move to intelligence, it's not just about Google. it's connective, right? It's relational. So everything you do out in the web, everything I would even say you do in a hidden portion of the web. So I'm just even thinking about, because like in the future, it's not just going to be about what you publicly say. It's also going to be about APIs and data that you're going to send directly to those agents in the future that nobody's even really thinking about or talking about right now, and how Google and other large language model systems and AIs can actually take that information so that they can provide that hyper relational and contextual and connective content to formulate answers. And then you be the one, like your organization or brand, be the one that is giving that detail, which again would then be the new symbiotic relationship, right? So does your business model fit within the new symbiotic relationship that has to be there for the structure of intelligence rather than information?
It's becoming so competitive that, Google has to make this change where it essentially is operating a lot more like ChatGPT. And there's all these AI platforms and everything. So things are going in this direction. It's not like they're going to go backwards and everything. But you're right. I mean, you have to, as a marketer, as a business, evolve and change your strategy and think about doing this very thing. And as you've said before too, it's really smart to, look beyond just Google for your digital marketing needs because of all this change. And the same with every platform. I mean, if you're relying 100% on Pinterest for your business, it's good to diversify at least a little bit outside of that, because you never know what's going to happen to Pinterest. You never know what's going to happen to Google. They're all going to change and everything. And it's also very valuable to, rely on your own platform.
Yeah. And I would say like looking online and looking on the forums and looking at all the comments, you know what I mean? Like we're seeing a lot of people talking about how angry, frustrated, lots of emotions, let's just say lots of emotions around this change. This is no different than when automobiles were introduced and lots of people used to use horses and wagons as a way of transportation. It's a big jump. This is no different than when we used to rely on yellow pages and brochures and printed materials before the internet. It is frustrating because usually you have to have the service come out first before marketers or business people can actually see how they relate and how they will use that to connect with their audience that they're trying to reach and get in front of. So is it weird, like a weird place in which we're all in right now? Yes, but I also think it's really exciting because we weren't just going to sit here and stay stagnant, right? Like as consumers, this is a good thing for us. Like as a person who is searching, as long as the answers are validated and true, so that you can rely on this. And what I'm getting at is like I don't want a lot of hallucinations, because then what are we really trusting?
Or mistakes within the AI,
exactly.
in other words. Yeah, and that's a problem now with AI. I mean, I searched, I forget what it was, but I did something in AI and it was like clearly wrong. And it still has that issues. And I remember a couple years ago, 3 years ago, when generative AI started to emerge,
Yeah.
there were a lot more issues, but there's still quite a few issues when you do searches and things like that.
Yeah, but this is the same thing when like Yahoo and what was it, Netscape and all that. Like those, there used to be things where you would search and like even the results that would come up, even within Google when it was in early stages, the results that would come up, they were not great. So that's the whole thing, is like it doesn't need to be perfect right now. This just is the entrance into this new space, this new version of our industry that we're in, that we've got to figure out again. Where is the new symbiotic relationship, and how do brands and businesses work within that business model? Because you're still going to, like, Google still owns 90% of that search market share. So it's still a channel, a platform in which you want to get in front of the audience that is searching there. Same thing with ChatGPT or Perplexity or Cloud. Like you want to be able to figure out how you become an answer within those. So instead of just having these emotions, it's also critically thinking about, how does my business change to actually serve the audience in this approach. Now, I will say there are certain business models where this completely breaks down on itself. And that is something that those organizations will just have to figure out.
Like
if
the
they want to
publishing
get,
industry,
if they
for
want to get in
instance.
front of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, they're
audience.
struggling with this sort
Yeah.
of thing for sure, especially with the all the Google AI mode announcements and things like that. But yeah, I love what you're saying. And, this can be intimidating if you have a business, if you're a marketer, because things are changing so fast on Google and in the search game. But I mean, that's like the whole reason we have this YouTube
Yeah.
channel, and we call it, our little tagline is the new era, exploring the new era of search.
Mhm.
And we do that because this is really interesting, and we encourage you to continue watching our videos and like and subscribe, because like if you stay on top of this stuff, it can be really, really beneficial to you personally and also to your business as well, because it's changing so fast. And if you can allow yourself to be interested in it and even enjoy it to some degree,
Mhm.
and not be scared or intimidated about it. Like you said, this happened with cars, with telephones, with so many things.
There's
over
so
the
many
years.
other scenarios we could show too. Yeah.
The change will always continue.
Yeah.
And you can make the decision to be afraid and intimidated of change, or you can say, I'm going to simply learn and do my best. And generally the people and organizations that succeed are the ones that understand the change
Yeah.
that's coming and adjust as quickly as they can. That doesn't mean you should jump on every new trend immediately as soon as you become aware of it. You do have to wait and watch a little bit, but it's moving fast enough that we can't wait and watch too much.
long.
Yeah, it's often good to wait and watch just briefly and then jump in, even if it's just putting your toe into it and experience it, get ready for it, and dive in.
Yeah. And I would say continue to watch, because there's so much that we could say about this. We're not talking about it all in this video, but just as like a quick little teaser, like thinking about the knowledge graph and thinking about agentics, those are two key areas in which you need to start to think about how your business evolves in those two spaces.
Yeah, and we need to talk more about that. Agentics, like that's what we're just starting to hear a lot, and not many people know what that means as of the recording of this. So that's something we'll talk more about in a future video. Yeah. Thanks so much for tuning in. Again, we really appreciate it if you like and if you subscribe to our channel. It helps out a lot. Thanks. We'll talk to you next time.